Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of the Hindy Project podcast. Today we tried something really interesting and different. We had a conversation with Shaykh Aarij Anwer on a segment that I'm thinking of doing every few months called Shaykhs Talkin Sports. And both of us being, native Toronto boys talking about the Toronto Raptors mainly and the Kawhi Leonard trade. Throwing a little bit of Maple Leafs in there, but I know most people don't follow hockey. And it wasn't really the expertise of Shaykh Anwar. So, we talked about Kawhi Leonard. I thought it was really cool. Check it out. We tried as well, if you're not a big basketball fan or anything, we tried pulling out, Islamic lessons from all of these basketball stories that we were talking about. So I hope you guys enjoy it. If you like it and you want us to do more of it, please be sure to check us out on Instagram, check us out on Facebook, leave us a comment, let us know if you like the episode or whether you want us to stick to, talking about Islamic community issues and spirituality issues rather than talking about sports. I would appreciate your feedback either way. And if you like this podcast and you want to support it, there's a lot of costs that go into it. We'd love your support. You can support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/The Hindy Project. Thank you. So, Jazakallah khair for joining. We have Shaykh Aarij Anwer, who was the imam, right, of Khalid Walid, and now is the executive director at the London Muslim Mosque. And do you still teach courses with Al Kawthar?
I do.
You do?
Yes.
MashaAllah.
Yes.
You wear lots of hats still.
Alhamdulillah. I'm trying to just reduce it to like maybe 2 or 3 at the most, inshallah.
MashaAllah. That's awesome. Alhamdulillah, we've been friends for a long time, and I wanted to get you on the podcast for a while, and I had this idea. I don't know how people are going to react to it. I'm sure some people are just going to see like the title and then they're just going to be like, we're not going to listen to this one. I'm just going to skip it.
That's me for like everything, right? People see the title, they see my name, like, forget this guy.
No. It's just like, there's people who don't care about sports, right?
Right.
And it's just going to be like that thing. And like I was talking to some brothers. I don't know, do you know Sheikh Yusuf Wahab?
I've heard of him.
From Windsor?
I've heard of him.
So he invited me to, they were having, his community was having a youth camp. So I went out there, and then to my surprise, a bunch of kids there who were like, hey, we listen to your podcast. And
that's amazing.
Like, yeah, it was awesome. And one of them was just like, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and he's like, the best thing about a podcast is like when you know what you're getting from it, like this is the subject they talk about. He's like, I listen to one podcast all about history, another podcast all about psychology or whatever. He's like, so just don't jump all over the place, like have like topics. And I was like, cool. I was thinking of doing one about sports. So totally not taking his advice and going in the opposite direction.
Season 2, inshallah. Take his advice.
Yeah. But I think it would be cool. Like, I think a lot of young Muslim, what? From my experience, it seems mostly like men who listen to podcasts. There are a lot of women who do. I think it makes you more approachable to young people when you talk about sports. Even at that camp, I just started talking to them about sports when we got into conversation, and then went into other subjects. But it just makes you more relatable, and people can see you're more in tune to the culture and whatnot when you know a little bit about like popular culture and all of that. I don't know what your opinion is. Like the other day, I was in a WhatsApp group with Sheikh Dawood, and someone started talking about like the Kiki challenge. You heard about this?
I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah. So when did you hear about it? When did you learn about it?
So I follow a lot of the basketball players on Instagram and Twitter.
Okay.
So all these like
sports,
because of this I find out right almost like immediately.
So you knew about this early.
Right. And then people are posting random things about this. Some like Arab dudes are doing it, and they're getting hit by cars, or someone is yelling at them. So it's taken a life of its own now, I think.
So like I was probably like a month late or a month and a half late or so. And I posted something about it in the group, and then one of the guys there, he was like, I had to Google this to find out what it was. And I was like, what's interesting is that this is like when you become an adult, that's what happens.
Right.
But then when you're working in da'wah, especially when you're doing like youth groups and you're talking to the youth, whatever, you have to know this stuff.
Absolutely.
You have to know it. And the kids tell you too. That's the other good thing. It's like you'll be talking to them and they'll tell you, like Fortnite, like that when that was like the craze. That was like all the kids were telling me about it, so I knew about it before like any other adults and stuff like that. But yeah, it's important to be like plugged into a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about sports. We're Shaykhs talking about sports today.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. So I think the first thing we want to talk about is like, before we get into the two topics, because we really want to get into Toronto sports and Kawhi Leonard, John Tavares, and talk about all that. But we want to talk about the first thing is how should we consume sports? Because, a lot of people will look at, one sheikh told me, a sheikh he had was just here, he was like, I hate sports because I started looking around Egypt and like all people cared about were sports. All they cared about was soccer. All they cared about was watching, the World Cup, and like they didn't have any ambitions besides that. And like it's just like he got disgusted with the idea of sports after that. Yeah. And some people like will see it from that perspective. And what do you see about that? Like how should we consume sports?
That's a great question. My personal opinion is that I'll give you an analogy first. So I used to play a lot of Halo and Counter-Strike back when I was in university. And I used to play with my friends, and then right around that time they started having the online version of it, so you can connect your Xbox to people online and start playing with people online. I think it's called Xbox Live. I've stopped playing consoles for a while, so you can see that I don't know the platform and stuff. But I remember praying Salah once, and I just was playing for many hours before that, Halo. And I would see like how the first person shooter, the gun is in front of your face? Yeah. Right? So I was seeing the gun in front of my face while I was praying the whole time. And I just couldn't like get rid of that image. Wow. And then I thought to myself that this is, I think, the point where it's gotten too much. Where even in the middle of my prayer, all I see is that game, right? And mind you, at that point, like I didn't know anything about Islam academically or Arabic or anything, right? But still, the fact that I couldn't shake that off for just a few minutes of Salah was got me thinking, right? So I think is, I guess, the line in the sand where it starts to take over the most important thing that a Muslim is supposed to do, which is Salah, right? Yeah. And if it's bothering you during Salah, like those thoughts and those stats, those comments are coming to your head while you're praying, I think you've gotten a little too far. Yeah. And also, maybe if I could add to that, is I think as Muslims generally, but Muslim men particularly, like we should be making it a habit to come to the masjid and pray Isha prayer, at least at the masjid. Yeah. Other prayers are nice, but there's work, there's school, all these things. Isha, I think, is the one prayer that everybody can make time for. After dinner, you come, right? Yeah. And it's always in conflict with games, always. So I see it that to consume sports, as long as you can stop the game and go pray Isha, and then come back and resume whatever is left. Right. If you can do that, I think that's a good balance. Because then your priority number one is still, worshipping Allah, devotion to the religion, going a little bit above like what's required, which is just to pray. You're going above by coming to the masjid. And then around that you consume whatever it is that you do, right? Yeah. That'll be my...
And it's doable, like especially today's day and age. I mean, I would do like halaqat at night in the masjid, and so I'm missing the Leafs game. I love to watch the Leafs game. Yeah. But I PVR it, and then or whatever, you could get them online afterwards. Yeah. You could watch it after, right? Like if you wanted to do it, you could do it.
You could do it, definitely.
Yeah. But it's interesting because, by the way, I was giving a talk at that camp to some of the kids, and I was using the example of Prophet Sulaiman, like when he had the race horses, and he loved the race horses, and then they distracted him from salah. So then he basically got rid of them. Yep. So I was like, who amongst you, if your PlayStation distracted you from your salah, you're going to throw away your salah? And all of the kids started laughing because they're like, we're not going to do that. Yeah, right? Yeah. But that was when I said the whole story. And they were just listening, like, whatever. And then once I brought up the PlayStation example, especially the young boys, they got it at that second.
Yeah, right?
This is what he did. He got rid of his PlayStation.
SubhanAllah, that's a really nice analogy.
Yeah. Yeah. But, also, I feel like it depends on the person, too. Like, I was dealing with this one young man, and, he loves basketball. and he has some really bad influences. He has some really bad influences at home. And like influences that are pushing him into like drugs and gangs and stuff like that. And I'm like, please play basketball. Like, please do it as much as basketball as you can. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like if he doesn't fill his time with that, he's gonna fill his time with things that are way worse, right?
Yeah.
And sports can be really good for young people in that position, especially, right?
Absolutely.
Like
I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, when I was in high school, I mean, I was never good enough to make a team, unfortunately. But I always, like, me and my friends, all after school till like when it's time to go home, we would just be playing sports, basketball or badminton or cricket, right? Because we were all like Pakistani immigrants. But we would just play sports, right? And that kept me out of trouble, right? Kept me away from the temptations of high school. Yeah. Right? Those are real things, right? I see other friends and people getting into that. And me and my friends who didn't want to get into that, that was our way of, what do we do in this time when everybody else is hanging out with their girlfriend or just guys hanging out with girls? What do we do, right? And then that was our thing. We just play ball or play cricket or play badminton. For sure. And just go to random places and bike and just activities, sport activities, just to keep ourselves away from fitna.
Yeah. No, it's so important, and it's also a way for you to like also fit in at school for young people without doing things that are haram, right? And still finding your place and all of that. And it's tough because a lot of people teach Islam like it's a rule book, right? And they're like, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. And then they're like, what's halal, right? So it's like we got to give them like some halal alternatives of what to do with their time too, right? So,
and the funny thing is, in usul al-fiqh that aslul al-hukm al-asli is al-ibaha, right? So but unfortunately I was looking at it from the perspective of haram, right? So but yeah, like giving people the alternative and things to do with their time, things that they can enjoy. I think that is important. But you're right, things can go over. I mean, I guess when we get to John Tavares, I'll talk about how things can go overboard. So we want to talk about Kawhi Leonard. We're both in Toronto Raptors fans. Yes. Raptors pulled a huge trade, and we were kind of hearing about. It was like I remember the first. When it was like Kawhi Leonard's available for trade, like they want to trade him and he wants to leave and whatever. And then like I see some people on Twitter and they're like, oh, the Raptors should trade for him. And then other people are like, you're crazy, they're never going to get him. That's a ridiculous suggestion to make. And then slowly it was like people like, oh, the Raptors might get him. Did you read that like some betting company somewhere put the odds? Yeah. And the Raptors were like the top odds?
And that happened beforehand.
Before he got traded, right?
But those are sometimes like you don't know how to. Because one thing about Vegas and betting is that, they know the odds of something happening, but also they know, like they'll do things even if they think that this is not the most likely scenario. Really? But it'll get them a lot of bets. Yeah.
I think the audience, we should give a disclaimer. Please do not indulge in betting.
But my point is like they'll try to play on people's emotions to encourage them to bet.
Absolutely, right?
So that's so I always take those kinds of things with a grain of salt.
That's true.
Yeah. But they started hearing this stuff and started pumping up, and then all of a sudden I was about to leave, get on the plane, and then I woke up really early in the morning, and I guess the trade was happening like 4 a.m. or something like that. So I was up at like 5 a.m. and then it was like the Raptors are traded for Kawhi Leonard, and I was just waiting to see what they traded for, and everybody was like, oh, they're gonna have to trade OG. And it was like DeMar and OG and a first and maybe something else. And I was like, that's a lot.
It's a lot to give up.
A lot to give up. Yeah. And then it was like an amazing trade. It was like, it turned out to be DeMar DeRozan, Jacob Pertl, who was one of their younger guys, but not their highest ceiling younger guys. Yeah. First round pick, which was protected pretty well, which I guess doesn't really matter. Yeah. And then Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green, who's a pretty good shooting guard. So they basically downgrade from DeMar DeRozan to Danny Green. Yeah. But then they upgrade massively at small forward with Kawhi Leonard. And this trade happened and Twitter explodes
Oh.
and Facebook explodes and all Instagram explodes.
Muslim Twitter explodes.
Muslim Twitter explodes. Everybody just like goes nuts. And I see a bunch of people telling me that they're Spurs fans now. They're no longer Raptors fans. They've traded it.
Yeah.
Mahmoud and some of these brothers, they've done that. And people were so angry.
Yeah.
And so emotional. And it was crazy. And I wanted to get like your reaction to the trade. Was it a bad trade for the Raptors to make?
So like there's two things, okay?
Yeah.
First one is when I saw the trade, before even I saw the report, I was following, I think I was traveling as well. And when I travel, I listen to, along with other things, a basketball podcast.
I hope this podcast on your list.
this podcast is also something that I listen to, alhamdulillah. But that one was something I listen to like regularly. Okay. It's a podcast by ESPN columnist Zach Lowe. Right? Okay. I really like his style.
He was one of the first people who said that.
Yeah. So on his podcast, one of the guys was like, "Don't be surprised if this happens," right? So I was kind of like, sure. And then when it happened, before I read who was who in the trade, all I was like, please do not trade OG and Siakam. As long as those two are not there, I think that's a good trade. Yeah. And that exactly is what happened. And in fact, I thought it was really good because the pick that they sent was a protected pick, but it's next year's pick, and the protected pick is if it doesn't
so
convey
this coming year,
like the coming year, right? Coming year, yeah. But if it doesn't convey next year,
then it goes.
Then it becomes 2 seconds, right? So you have like set up really well. If the Raptors are good, if Kawhi is healthy, Raptors will be one of the top teams again. Yeah. So that pick will convey. It'll be like a late first rounder. Yeah. If the Raptors, if he's injured and or maybe he's not fitting in, it's just a disaster, right? Yeah. They trade him away, okay? Assume that scenario. That's fine. Just now you just tank and make sure you keep the pick, and then next year you give away 2 seconds.
Which is nothing.
Which is nothing, right? So in reality, that probably is the biggest asset, like with like a future, and they like Masai did a good job. I actually am not a huge Masai fan. Like I was, I thought his signings of Ibaka and Demari Carroll, right? All those
are the only two mistakes he's made, right?
Sure, but I mean, who's paying Ibaka that much money, right?
Norm Powell too.
Yeah, Norm Powell is okay. I mean, like that's Casey's fault mostly. That I would say because Casey, if he misses one rotation, Casey would just bench him, right? And I didn't like. He's a young guy. He's a second round pick. He needs more confidence than like a lottery pick, right? So I still think that's a good, get. Because that position is really vital, right? But who's paying Ibaka 20 million, right? That was my take. But regardless, like Masai has always drafted well. Like almost everybody he's drafted, he's done a great job with. Bruno being the exception. But even that is fine. But overall, I'm like, there's people who are like 100% Masai. Yeah. Right? And I was like, he's got to show something, right? Yeah. When he did this, I was like, Masai now is like, he's done it, right? That's it. Because he didn't give away our best assets, which was OG and Siakam, right? And he got, and the pick was a protected pick. Yeah. And you got a top 3 player, right? When he's healthy. Yeah. Like, this is a guy who can look LeBron in the eye and say, I'm going to beat you. Right? He can look Durant in the eye and say, I'll beat you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, he's that guy.
And people don't understand that. This is the level of player you're potentially getting.
Right. Him, right? And I was saying basketball is
built on that, right?
You need that top 5 player to have any chance. Yeah. Right? Like there's exceptions like the Detroit team in 2004 and like you can say maybe the Boston team that won against with Paul Pierce and KG, right? You can say there's no real top 5 guy there, right? But
they're still pretty stacked.
They're pretty stacked, like very balanced and whatnot, right? But almost every other time you see the team winning or close to winning, they've got like 1 or 2 top 5 players, right? So this is the name of the game, right?
It's not like hockey. Like hockey, they had a expansion team,
right? They made that all the way.
Went around just picking like undervalued guys on every team.
Yeah.
And then they just had this team of, above average players. Yeah. And they had a really good season, and they got lucky in the playoffs. Like their goalie played extraordinarily well.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, we call it like luck-driven kind of.
Yeah.
And they went all the way to the finals, so it's kind of crazy. But you would never do that in basketball.
No,
it just
right?
can't work, right?
And in hockey, these like, you know, the lower seed, I think, regularly beats the higher seed, right? Happens. Like, it's not like a shock.
Yeah.
Right? When it does happen. In basketball, if like the 6th seed, right? If, for example, like, or last year, New Orleans beat Portland, 3-6. People were shocked. They're like, what happened to Portland, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's not common.
Yeah.
So I thought he did a great job. Didn't give away our best assets, right? And Jakob Pearl, actually, I would say he's like the 5th best young player. So if you have to give away one young player, he's the guy.
That's the guy, yeah.
Right? So I thought that was like a very, very good move.
He's a good player, but it's just like his ceiling is not.
Yeah, right.
He's not going to be a superstar.
And to be honest, that position in the NBA is now like the least valuable.
Right. You get people cheap every year.
Cheap. Like, you need people at the small forward, the shooting guard, the power forward position. That's and the point guard. Those four, and ideally a guy who can play like all four. That's your money, right? Like that's where you get your value. The centers are very like, you know, interchangeable now. But so that was the first thing. I was really happy with everything, and I was like, if he stays and he's healthy, like for the year, will be phenomenal. The Raptors. If he doesn't, it's still okay, like because the protections, the way they are, I thought that was very good.
Yeah.
The other thing was the reaction of the people.
Yes.
So I was genuinely shocked that people who I thought were like basketball lifers were reacting so poorly to this. They're like, oh, what a terrible trade. This is, Masai is horrible. And I'm like, did you not see like the game 3 of the Cavs Raptors series? Like DeRozan was on the bench the whole time. He had like 8 points or something. Like, did you not see how horrible he looked in that series? This is like, I mean, and then when he was not doing so well, people were like, oh, the Raptors, oh, DeRozan, he's so bad. Okay, let's agree on that, right? Let's get somebody who is phenomenal.
So like they forgot the things they were saying in the past themselves.
Right? It's like, you know, like you're contradicting yourself. And I was surprised. And then this is something that I see a lot with like brothers on social media and du'at who put out these like they say these things on social media. And I think you have to understand, like, as a da'i or as a person who has some reputation, you should be very careful on what you say about things that essentially don't really mean anything. Right? Like sports in the long, you know, big picture doesn't mean much, right? So, you know, why are you reacting so much? Why are you saying things that makes you look so emotionally unstable? You know, like so reactive. It's not becoming. Like, you know, like Imam al-Bukhari, for example, it's famous that he wouldn't go buy stuff at the market. He would send somebody to buy. And when I read that with my teacher, I was like, why does he do that? That's really like bizarre. It's kind of bizarre behavior, right? And he said it's because he believes that the alim has a maqam and he doesn't want to compromise that by being in the market and haggling people and bargaining and whatnot. And he doesn't want to be taken advantage of either. Here comes a nice imam, let's rip him off. So he's like, I'm going to just avoid the situation and have somebody else, you know, do that task for me. I'm not suggesting that, I mean, we become like Imam Bukhari or whatever, right? But the point of keeping perspective of who you are and what you represent, I think is very critical. And I've seen like some du'at embarrass themselves on social media, and like I'm embarrassed for them.
This is like when you go too far in trying to be relatable, that like you end up like with like coming off as foolish or not, like
but I would actually say that they come off as a little childish. Not like, you know, that's one thing, like someone trying to be relatable, say something and you're like, dude, what are you saying? But this is you looking like a child. And I just feel that as du'at and just people, we should be more careful not to like react in that manner. Right? And sports is like very fickle. So like the reactions of people, and it's you know, like the ESPN's like biggest talk show, like the First Take, right? For Stephen A. Smith and these guys, like it's all just fickle reactions and yelling and screaming. We can't be that. I mean, if your sport is turning you into that, I'm sorry, there's some part of the equation that needs to change.
Yeah, Steven Smith is the worst.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So my take a little bit on the social media reactions was like people, and I feel like Muslim community does this a lot.
Yeah.
Politics, we do it with sports, we do it with lots of things. It's that we don't pay attention to the details, right? So people are just reacting to DeMar being traded without even understanding what the trade is about, what they gave up, what they're getting back, all the details, even that like the Raptors got money back in return, so they like that was a part of the deal. Not realizing all the details, and they're just reacting to like the platitude or like the big the showy part of the whole deal. I say that all the time, especially with politics. I was just thinking recently about how, you know, whether it comes to like politicians who are like, we're anti-Islamophobia, or they come to the masjid, and then Muslims are like, yeah, they like us, yeah. Like, what did that politician do to us? Like, what did they give us? What do we get out of them? Yeah. They can't point to anything. Yeah. Right? Because we don't pay attention to the details. I mean, even something like, I'm going way off topic right now, even something like M103, right? So Muslims are like, that's awesome, man. They're condemning Islamophobia. That's great. But what really ended up happening? The whole point of M103 is to go to committee to study Islamophobia. Well, the conservatives started whipping up anti-Muslim sentiment, so the liberals got afraid, and they told the MPs who were part of pushing for M103, like Ikra Khalid, they said, don't touch it, because anything you touch, there's a microscope on you. So she couldn't touch it. And the other liberal MPs didn't do anything. Yeah. So when it came time for committee, the conservatives started putting people like Tarek Fatah on the committee, all these other people on the committee. They stacked those voices. And the Muslim voices that got on there were very few. There was like NCCM got to go, CCI got to go, a few like organizations here and there got to go. But the committees were stacked with anti-Muslim voices. And the report that came out of the committee was terrible. Yeah. So, but if you ask the average Muslim, they're like, yeah, everything was great, and they passed them 103.
Yay liberal party, right?
Yay liberals and whatever. Yeah. Which I'm not saying like vote for them or don't vote for them, but like we don't pay attention to the details. Right? We don't do this about a lot of things. Whether it's like salat, and the person doesn't pay attention to the details of their salat. They go for Hajj, they don't pay attention to the details of their Hajj. Politics, how many Muslims in this area have voted for the conservatives for sex ed because they want to repeal sex ed. Guess what? And I had a conversation with Sheikh Mustafa Khattab before this, and I was like, whether you vote for conservatives or not, sex ed is going to stay. Yeah. And all of the school boards in the area, at least 9 in Ontario, said we're going to keep it regardless of what the government says. Yeah. But they're going to find another way around it. Yeah. Which is obvious. Yeah. So, and then because you voted for Ford, I don't want to say because, but probably because they voted for Ford. Look how many attacks there have been against Muslims, Islamophobic attacks the last couple of weeks. I just posted on Facebook, there's been like 6 attacks. It's been crazy. It's crazy. Like I've been out of the city for like 3 weeks. Yeah. And it just feels like every time I open Facebook or Twitter, there's something like someone's being attacked. You can't keep up with it. It's right? Insane. It's just. But anyways, like the point is we're so reactive and emotional, and we respond to like these platitudes, but we're not like focused on the details. The details, yeah. Right, and like the daqa'iq, those details are the most important things of everything, right? Everything matter, right? So, anyways, I went on a huge tangent there. No, it's a great point. Yeah. Because it was a good deal. It was a good trade. I thought it was a great trade, though. Yeah, I posted on one brother's Facebook. I was like, I think it's a little too early to react. I think you were overreacting here. And it didn't go down well. He didn't like that comment. I think, too, like, people kind of, like, they couldn't, it's like emotional intelligence, right? Yeah. So they couldn't, like, decipher between the concept of being sad about the trade, because DeMar's being traded, and being mad about it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, but I would ask, why are you sad that DeMar's traded? Well, I kind of get it. Okay, look, Toronto has this inferiority complex with regards to the U.S., right? And but let's talk about that. Yeah. Okay, name me like one guy that Chicago has signed. Chicago Bulls. This is like the mega city.
one of the greatest franchises, iconic.
Yeah, they haven't signed anyone in a long time.
No one. They haven't signed anybody.
Dwayne
Dwayne Wade when he was done, right? He was like, Dwayne Wade couldn't get his money from Miami, so he went to Chicago, right? If Miami offered that money, he wasn't even going to Chicago, right? This is like, if you look at free agent signings, it's either like something crazy that LA has done because they're LA, and Lakers and LA that's just the exception, right? Or there is some signings here and there by something like Boston. They sign, Gordon Hayward. Right. But generally, like even before, say, they take Boston, storied franchise, they had to acquire those assets by trade.
They had to be a good team first.
They had to be a good team.
And then guys would sign with them.
Exactly, right?
Which is very similar to the Leafs. We're going to talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Leafs too. But, this whole inferiority complex, I get it. I think 3 years ago it was there, right? I would be reading something or listening to like a sports podcast. I'm like, yo, mention the Raptors, man. We're pretty good. We're top 10 offense and defense. Yeah. We should be mentioned. But it wasn't. But now it's not the same. Now we're mentioned.
Now it's a little bit.
You think so?
I was watching some video. I don't know, like ESPN or something, and then they were like talking about how for sure the Celtics are the best team in the East, no question. And then someone's like Raptors, like it's not even close. I was like, why?
I mean, but ESPN is a lot of like hot air. ESPN has like they bring people who are just loud and say things for a reaction. Yeah. Like on the TV, right? Like the actual
the radio
good radio and the good journalists, the people who have like nice columns and stuff. I think they are like, if Kawhi is healthy, this is something to be seen.
Yeah.
Right? And Boston, as an example, okay, when Kyrie was hurt, all these young players got all the spotlight. Yeah. Right? Tatum, Brown, Rozier, they got all the spotlight. Now what's gonna happen when Kyrie comes back and Gordon Hayward comes back? Like, why would Tatum take a step back? Right? Would Rozier take a step back? Right? Like, why would Jaylen Brown, who was guarding LeBron and then hitting threes and then guarding LeBron, and he was like the two-way player in that whole series. Why is he sitting on the bench at the end of the game because there's no space for him to play? Right? Do you think these people will handle this like really well? Like, do people think like Kyrie is really rational? Like, Kyrie Irving believes the earth is not round. I mean, this is not a rational person, right? You think someone says something to him and he won't get upset and just, say, I want to trade, or maybe something happens to his knees again. I mean, there's a lot of variables, there's a lot of egos in Boston. Sure. And they have, I think, too many great young players and established great stars that are coming off an injury. Like Kyrie and Hayward are stars coming off injuries, and the other young guys are really phenomenal. So
making it fit is gonna be tough.
It's like it's a weird combo. Like, who gets the shots, right? Yeah. So, I mean that's a point. But coming back to the inferiority complex, I think though that's overblown a little bit, in my opinion.
But it's in the minds of people in Toronto, anyways.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's like the idea of like never ever has a good player wanted to be in Toronto, and DeMar's the first guy who wanted to be here, who didn't even take meetings with other teams. He only wanted to stay in Toronto. He signed here immediately,
But Lowry was the first one, actually.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah.
Although I think the difference is like Lowry came here and like wasn't intending to stay.
Yeah.
Also, the last time he was a free agent, he did listen to other teams.
Yeah.
He ultimately stayed.
Yeah.
And people aren't sure if he stayed because he wanted to,
or the money.
Stayed because the money, and there wasn't really a better option for him to go anywhere else. So that kind of plays into it.
True.
But yeah, I mean, I think like, and then he's a good player.
Yeah.
Probably the best. I won't say he's the best Raptor. I mean, Vince Carter was obviously a better player while he was here, but like the best career as a Raptor.
That's true.
And then, he got better every year.
Yeah.
You can't deny that. Like, he seemed to work really hard in the summers and all of that. Yeah. There's a lot of things like that you want out of your hometown athletes that DeMar did bring.
Yeah.
You can't really deny that. So I kind of get why people are like, I'm upset that DeMar got traded.
Yeah.
Right? But then for me, it's like, okay, I can be sad about that and contextualize, hey, a good player got traded. I don't know if you're familiar with the Leafs, long time ago.
Yeah.
They had Wendell Clark. Drafted him first overall.
Yeah.
Really good player. People in Toronto loved him. He would hit, he would fight, he would score goals, all of that. And then the GM, while he was in his prime, decided to trade him to Quebec to get Matt Sundin, who was this little kid who was also drafted first overall, but was the skinny kid from Sweden, first European guy drafted first overall. People in Toronto super skeptical, angry, so upset. Yeah. How could you trade?
And look at Sundin now, right?
And Sundin carried the franchise for years.
He's the icon now, right?
Yeah, he's a way bigger deal than Wendell Clark.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, I get why people are upset when a good player, you've
tripped him off,
and you've spent years watching him and all of that. He gets traded, but you shouldn't be mad because you got a better deal back, right?
100%.
So. And people couldn't they don't have the emotional intelligence to differentiate.
Juggle two emotions, right?
Yeah. Juggle those two emotions, right? Instead, their sadness became anger and it just kind of went from there.
And I'm amused and surprised when people are so short-sighted. Because literally, a month ago, you guys were cussing out DeMar DeRozan.
And they're so angry.
Right? You were so
got
angry.
Swept again.
Yeah. Right? And 100% in that series, the culprit was DeMar, in my opinion. Because Lowry actually played
pretty good,
in the entire playoffs fairly well, right? And people actually, I don't know why, the Raptor fans, they love hating Lowry and they love DeMar. And I'm like, Lowry has been, as an example, top 10 in plus minus, even adjusted plus minus for the last 4 years.
And his analytics are always pretty good. Right?
Always good. He's top 10 3-point shooter, always top 3 charges taken. Yeah. He's an excellent defender. This guy is, he is a complete package. He's not the next, he's not an all-NBA player, but you only have 15 of those, right? Yeah. But DeMar made the all-NBA team this year, right? That's good for him, right? Yeah. But, and before this year, consistently, Lowry was the better player. And he, this year, showed up in the playoffs. Last year, he was fairly good in the playoffs, right? So I don't know why people are so much
Whereas you've had consistent failures from DeMar in the playoffs.
Yeah, and then DeMar just disappears, right? I mean, the joke. There's something I was listening to that podcast, right? And this is, I'm sure it's a thing that LeBron said to the people, the Cavs team, the first guy who bites on DeMar DeRozan's pump fakes is every time a guy bites on his pump fakes, you're paying $100 to the team.
Wow.
Right? And when you think about that, right, that if your game can be broken, one of your main tools can just be broken down so easily, I don't know how far you can take a team, right? So I was never really a DeMar DeRozan fan, by the way.
I think one of the things about him, watch, I have to, admit, I'm not a basketball expert. Never much of a player or anything like that, but last few years I kind of got into it, and then I'm so into hockey that I start seeing all the similarities between different sports. So one of the things that I could notice about DeMar is that his game is predicated. He doesn't have a 3-point shot. Right. He tried developing it this year, but he didn't really
you can say that again.
And he has to drive the lane. To get his plays, and he's relies on drawing flat fouls.
That's it. Right?
And in the playoffs, they're not calling as many fouls. So
or the defenses are smarter.
And the defenses are tighter and smarter. Everyone's working harder, right?
Because they have days off. They can study film. They're oh, he's pump faking always here. Okay, don't fall for it. Yeah. Right. So
it's different. Playoffs is in sports is always different because you're your awareness is heightened. And, whereas in the season it's 82 games and you can have bad games and you can get distracted or whatever. But in the playoffs are super focused. And people defend better in hockey. They defend better in soccer in the playoffs. They defend better in every sport in the playoffs. And so they're defending better. He's not getting fouls because the refs don't want to be the deciding factor. So they're not calling as many fouls. And he can't create space by, hitting 3-pointers and opening up space for himself. So then you're just this problem in the playoffs is going to keep repeating itself, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And we haven't even said anything about his defense. DeMar,
which is the other
with
issue.
no defense.
Which is, I guess, the reason why Dwayne Casey got fired was that they were upset that he never helped DeMar become a better defender.
Well, Casey being fired is a different thing, though. So Casey being fired, I mean, if you saw the Cavs series, right? like there was points. Like I remember these. Like I think it was game 2. Oh, sorry.
I want to pull the mic down or something.
Sure, sorry. The game 2 of the series, right?
Yeah.
I think there were 6 or 7 plays in a row where LeBron called for the guy who was guarding CJ Miles to come and set a screen for LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
CJ Miles will switch on LeBron, and LeBron just does whatever he wants. He's going to the lane, getting a layup. Right. He's shooting a fadeaway. He's doing whatever he wants. And do you not see that this is the problem right now? Like, why aren't you substituting that guy out? Right? Sure, CJ Miles is a good 3-pointer. Can you leave him there when he's being picked on repeatedly every single play by LeBron? And like, I think Casey had like
adjustments weren't there.
Serious problem with adjustments. Like if his game plan was figured out by somebody, right? Then I don't think he had like a on the fly adjustment ready, right? So that was like one that's Casey, but like DeMar DeRozan, right? If you look at his thing,
but I did read that they were like upset, particularly because they were like, DeMar's really athletic, and to be good defensively he needs to be athletic, but like they felt the coaching staff didn't work on him being better defensively, right? I
would argue that I think you have to have a really high basketball IQ to be a good defender. You have, I mean, athleticism obviously, it goes without saying, right? But you have so many great athletes who are just horrible defenders. And you know, these guys would be good defenders in college because it's a more straightforward game and they could cheat off their guy and play like,
rely on their athleticism too.
You know, like in football they have like a free safety. So a lot of these guys would like kind of play free safety in college, look really good. But you come in the NBA, you play in a system, and you try doing that, you will get burned, and then you'll be on Twitter and Instagram, people laughing at you, right? So it takes like a smart player to play defense really well, right? I think one of the best examples of that is like someone like Klay Thompson, right? And the Warriors. He's not super athletic. I mean, he's not jumping off the court or something. He's like a very like athleticism-wise pretty average, right?
But he reads plays.
But he is one of the top defenders, right? He reads plays. He's playing in a system. So I think DeRozan's basketball IQ was not very high. You could see that, I think, a little bit when he was thrust in the role of, okay, now you are playing a bit of point guard, right? So he's just a little slower in making decisions, a little slower in passes, and then it is exposed badly on defense. Because he's a great athlete. He's like a phenomenal athlete. But it's not... Just you have to be able to read it, right? And, I mean, if I have been a LeBron James fan since the very beginning, and I've always liked players with like who are really smart. Okay, so like Steve Nash, Ray Allen, LeBron. Right? Of course, LeBron's way above these two, right? I've always liked players of that smart kind of like really smart, like
Jason Kidd.
Jason
Kidd.
Jason Kidd too. Jason Kidd also, but if you look at, for example, particularly LeBron, right? He is like, this man is like reading things so fast. It takes a while to get used to. And you have to like watch everybody besides LeBron when they're playing, right, to see what's happening. And then if you watch like for a few minutes like that, you start to figure out what he's trying to do actually. So he's kind of like playing chess with the other team. And obviously that's like highly at a new level, right? When he's doing that. But basketball isn't just, you know, you need to be a great athlete, really fast, jump really high. You have to bring all smart, of those intangibles along with a very smart brain and an ability to read things. I think DeMar was lacking there. I'm not saying like he's dumb or something, you know, but I just don't...
like the ability to like interpret what's happening on the floor really quickly.
Right.
It's the same thing in hockey. So they apparently a long time ago they did this experiment with Wayne Gretzky. And what they did was they just like flashed this image. It's like a really quick flash. So fast that like you couldn't really see what was flashed. Like, you can kind of tell it's like a hockey rink, and that's all you can tell, right? So they did this to a bunch of people. And they did it to Wayne Gretzky, and he was able to, just off that flash, he's able to tell them everyone who's on the ice, where they're on the ice, where they're going next, like, where they're moving. Like, so just like flick, he could like understand all of that. And that's the problem is like players, and if any of us were playing, it would take us like 5 seconds to figure it out.
Yeah, definitely.
And like the elite players are figuring out in like a quarter of a second, like a fraction of a second, right? Yeah. And that's the difference.
I remember Lemieux. Like I actually never watched Gretzky. Like I wasn't here in Canada when like Gretzky was at his peak, but I remember watching Lemieux. You know,
you could see the same thing with
him,
because
he's just so smart, right? Yeah. And he wasn't super fast or something. He was just
he was big and skilled.
Yeah,
you could read the plays. Yeah, it's in every sport that's like it puts you over.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's an important point. Like his basketball IQ is not the greatest. He's a good player, but he's just not. Yeah. He's not that level. Right?
I'll take Kawhi any day.
Yeah, I mean, Kawhi Leonard. You watch him, and it's like defensively, he's just incredible. Probably one of the best defensive players in the league.
I would say probably one of the best ever, bro.
Really.
I mean, when he's healthy, he's
like he steals and his hands are massive too.
His hands, and I have never seen anybody hassle elite point guards like
he does.
Kawhi. Like I mean, Steph Curry, Chris Paul, these guys have ball handling skills that are just absolutely absurd. Actually,
and he still gets on them.
But the way he picks their pockets, like it's like taking a ball from a child.
Wow.
Right? He's so good, and I just can't believe people are not excited to have someone like that in the Raptors jersey, right?
And think about it. I mean, they can have put like a defensive lineup together where you have like Kawhi Leonard is on there. Yeah. I guess you can have like OG, Siakam probably.
Yeah, Siakam played the center
defensively, and then
you can Lowry and Green.
Danny Green is pretty good. Lowry up front.
That's a
pretty good defensive unit.
That's a very good to close the game. That's an excellent unit.
Yeah.
Everybody can shoot.
Yeah.
There you have at least two guys who can make plays. Lowry and Kawhi, right?
Yeah.
They can handle the ball.
Yeah.
All of them can defend.
Yeah.
They can switch almost every spot.
Yeah.
Right. Siakam's underrated. People don't realize he has got serious potential.
Too. Yeah.
So that's a scary lineup.
Yeah, and Danny Green was a pretty good defensive player too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things they could do with this team. I mean, you won't know till you watch, and of course, all hinges on Kawhi Leonard being healthy.
That's it. That's the
big part of it. Now, do you think there's any chance that Kawhi Leonard stays in Toronto?
I do.
Wow. I think so too. So we're actually on the same level on a bunch of things. But I know some people out there are listening and they're just going to be like, no way it's ever happening.
Right.
Why do you think it can happen?
Well, see, unless Kawhi Leonard, the only thing in life that matters to him is playing in LA, right?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's just going off on its own.
Oh, I think it's about to be closed. I think if the only thing that matters to Kawhi is playing in LA, right, and that's it, then obviously,
then there's nothing.
The Lakers got LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
What did they do to get LeBron? Nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
Right? I mean, they missed on Tatum.
Yeah.
Right? They missed on they missed on Embiid.
Right.
Right? Did they miss on Embiid? Who did they? Actually, sorry, I don't think they missed on Embiid. No, sorry. They missed on Porzingis. Right? Because they drafted D'Angelo Russell.
Right.
Right? They have drafted. Okay.
Drafted.
Okay. You can grade them average.
Yeah.
Okay. They haven't really made any incredible improvements.
They got lucky. I mean, LeBron James was a free agent. He wanted to go somewhere else.
He wanted to go LA. That's it.
He wanted to go to LA.
There
weren't really many options for him, really. Okay. Just Philly and LA.
Philly, LA, Houston, but I just think he just wanted to be on the West Coast. Do his thing there. That's
and his son is apparently a good basketball player, and he wants to make sure good programs, probably better programs, are going to be in LA.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, it's like, put it this way. I mean, he could have, Houston could have made the whole thing work.
Mm-hmm.
If LeBron said, "I'm coming to Houston," they would have made the salary cap. Everything work, and then you put those three guys together on the court and you say, you guys figure it out. And they're three of the smartest basketball players, they would figure it out.
Yeah.
Harden, Chris Paul, and LeBron, right? He could have gone to Philly, and they had space and everything.
Yeah.
So those were good options, workable options. It wasn't like a pipe dream, right?
Yeah.
But he just wanted to go to LA. He wants to live in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
That's it. And the team he would play for is the Lakers. Yeah. No one's playing for the Clippers. So, that's if that's what Kawhi wants, then nobody. It doesn't matter which team he's on. He's gonna go to LA, right? LA is like like the hadith of the the hadith of the guy who has good manners, right? So he's like somebody who marries someone's widow, and then the widow ends up with him in Jannah instead of her original husband, because he is got better akhlaq. And the Prophet said people of good akhlaq take everything, right? They get everything, right? So inappropriate analogy being LA is
they get everything.
They get everything. But if Kawhi is hard to set on that, what can you do? Okay, right. But if you discount that for a second, and if Kawhi is like, I don't really know what I want, okay, big possibility. You give him the crazy Raptor fans, okay, the ones who are just like, have you been to like a game recently?
Well, last game I went to.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the only ones. Actually, the only one I went to.
Yeah.
It was Game 7 against the Pacers. So not a few years ago.
Oh, in the playoffs?
In the playoffs.
Nice.
Yeah. They won that game pretty easily.
Yeah. So I go sometimes, like a couple of times a year with my cousin, right? And he's a big Raptors guy. Like, he's the one who, like, he goes to, like, he drove to Cleveland to cheer for the Raptors when they were playing the series there. I mean, I was like, bro, come on. But I go once a couple of times a year just to hang out with him and watch the game.
That's cool.
And we can't talk. I can't talk to my cousin. We're sitting right next to each other. It's so loud.
Wow.
It's bananas. Like, it's just... And after, like, a couple of games, like, we had more tickets. I told him, I'm not coming. Can you sell my ticket? I get a headache at the game.
Wow.
So, you give him, like, that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
Right? You give him a really good team. He is the star. Easily could be, like, the main player in the Eastern Conference, the best player in the Eastern Conference. Yeah. They get to the finals. He sees that, like, I can get to the finals in the East, like, every year. Right? Or for the next few years, I can get to the finals in the East. I think that is reason for him to be convinced, right?
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I read one thing that he wanted to... what was really important for Kawhi Leonard is to build his brand as a player.
Yeah.
And he didn't feel like he could build his brand in San Antonio.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons people were saying he wants to go to LA was where he wants to go because that's where he thought he was going to build his brand.
Yeah.
But I think, in Toronto, you're Canada's team.
Definitely.
You have 30 million people in Canada. That's a pretty big population pool to sell to.
Yeah.
That's if that's his idea, because I know Nike offered him a contract he rejected.
Yeah.
Because he didn't feel like it was enough.
Yeah.
So, and these basketball players, they make more money off their endorsements than they do off their contracts.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like that's their main bread and butter.
Yeah.
That to me, that seems like a possibility.
Yeah.
If he goes to LA, he'll increase his brand, but he's still competing against LeBron, who's
definitely he'll be in LeBron's shadow until he retires.
And there's 30 million people in California, but there's also 4 teams in California.
That's
so
right.
It kind of cuts up like your demographics.
Yeah.
I can see a possibility. Like from the business perspective, I can see the possibility.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, it's a good team, and you can make the finals. And guess what? When you're on the East Coast, traveling is a lot easier than traveling on the West Coast because of much farther distances and all of that.
Yeah.
It's possible. Like you said, if his mind is set on LA, he's going to go to LA, then there's nothing you could do.
You can't do anything about that, right?
Yeah. And then Masai Ujiri apparently is someone who's really personable, convinces people really easily. Apparently Kawhi Leonard loves Barack Obama, and apparently Masai Ujiri's really good friends with him.
Really?
Who knows, all this stuff.
Right? Who knows what Masai can pull now.
Yeah, so kind of leave it in that perspective. Yeah. I think there's a possibility. I wouldn't bet on it, but I feel like there's a...
I think let's wait and see.
Yeah.
It's more like, okay,
see how
what's going to happen next year? Who knows right now, but let's see. How healthy is he? How is he gelling?
Yeah.
How, what he was in like 2 years ago, not last year, the year before, if he can be at some version of that to the Raptors, right? With a larger role, with definitely more potential, with a lot of younger guys, because he was the younger guy there. Everybody else was old.
That's true.
Right?
So the other thing about is one thing that's interesting with Kawhi Leonard, This is going to be a really long podcast. One thing that's interesting with Kawhi Leonard is like narrative. I find narrative to be really interesting, no matter what I'm studying, like politics, sports, whatever.
Yeah.
So the narrative around Kawhi Leonard a few years ago, and you correct me if I'm wrong, was that he was a guy who didn't like the spotlight.
Yeah.
He was just like a guy who came and worked hard and went home and didn't care about being on social media, doesn't care about like being in the spotlight, doesn't care about attention. And that he liked being in San Antonio because like it was kind of a small market.
Yeah.
And you didn't get all the attention of like bigger markets.
Yeah.
And then now all of a sudden, like the whole script, the media just changed the script. Like the media is really good at that. Like it just changed scripts really fast. One day he's like the perfect superstar, the one who doesn't care about attention. Yeah. And then all of a sudden he became a prima donna. Yeah. Right? And they just like, because he was in a fight with the team, they just shifted the whole script on him completely. Where was I going with this? Anyways, my point was that Toronto is kind of the best of both worlds, because people are not in your face in Canada the way they are in the US. Yeah, and you're not going to get that. Like if you're an athlete who doesn't like people constantly coming up to you, and invading your personal space and like demanding of you to do stuff. Athletes always talk about Toronto and Canada in general being like really like chill out. Like people see you on the street, they'll say, "Hey, how are you?" But they won't like invade your privacy. Obviously there's people here and there.
And still Leaf Town. Whatever the Raptors do, it's still Leaf Town.
So there's always like the media is there, but it's also not like as like in your face and all of that. So I thought it was interesting. Like if he has that. Not wanting to be under the crazy spotlight, then I would think he wouldn't want to go to LA and wouldn't want to go to Boston. Yeah. And then the other thing about Kawhi Leonard is that he doesn't talk. Yeah. And everything that's being said about him is being said from like second-hand, third-hand sources. So no one knows what's going on in his head. Like no one does.
I don't even know if he knows what he wants, right? Yeah. And I mean, think about it when like you were 26, 27. I think he's 27, right? Yeah. Like I don't think like I didn't have a clear idea of what I wanted to be at 27, right? Yeah. Now here's a guy with so much like anything he would say, people would like talk about. Yeah. People are talking about his life. Yeah. For a person like that, he'll be even more confused, I would imagine, right? Yeah. Under that much scrutiny. So some people are like really clear in life. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Kawhi is one of those people. Yeah. I think he just had to figure out what to do. Yeah, I think personally he never thought of leaving San Antonio until all this stuff happened with his injury. Yeah. He was really upset with the team. Yeah. And apparently Denny Green, I don't know if you saw that. Yeah. He started his own podcast, by the way. Really, huh? Denny Green, yeah. And then in his first podcast he was talking about how his injury was misdiagnosed as well. Yep. And that's apparently there's like a big issue going on. Yep. I think if that issue hadn't happened, he would have just stayed in San Antonio. I think so. And like the people I think don't like give enough weight to that. An athlete feeling that their injury was misdiagnosed, and feeling threatened that my career could be derailed because it's the examples are there. Athletes, I mean, look at Isaiah Thomas, who was not misdiagnosed, but he wasn't stopped by the Boston staff when he was playing with his like injured hip. Yeah, what happened is he tore his labrum, continued making it worse and worse, and then just couldn't had stopped and he couldn't go any further, right? And then they traded him to Cleveland. Yeah. He came back quicker than he should have. Yeah. Never really fit in. Got traded to LA. LA doesn't want anything to do with him. Yeah. Okay, because they already have their point guard in ball. Yeah. And now he's signing a minimum deal. Yeah. If you look at this whole chain reaction, if like, it's difficult to say, right? But like you stop the athlete at a certain point before they get hurt really bad. Mm-hmm. That would mean a lot to that athlete, like for their career. Yeah, you know? and like
it's a big thing with them.
Yeah, so I think a lot of those guys look at Isaiah as like, oh, this is a cautionary tale. We can't let that happen to us. Yeah, right. So maybe Kawhi that was part of it, but ignoring what Kawhi is like thinking for a sec, because we don't really know. Yeah. Let's look at the two scenarios: Kawhi stays or Kawhi goes. Mm-hmm. Okay, Kawhi stays in Toronto. Now we have a. Why do teams tank? Why did Philly suck for 5 years?
To draft good players.
To get a player like Kawhi, right, who was a top 5 player in his prime. Yeah. Right? You got that with no tanking. Raptors fans, rejoice. Okay? You got that at the expense of DeMar DeRozan 100 times out of 100 times. I would do that trade. Eyes closed, right?
So, the point about injury, by the way. Yeah. Like So my sister's wife is my wife's sister is married to my sister's wife. Doesn't make sense. So for this podcast, doesn't make sense. Went off somewhere. My wife's sister is married to an ex-CFL player.
Oh, nice.
He's drafted in the NFL and he had a long career in the CFL. He doesn't like to watch football anymore, and he's really upset till now. And it's been years since he's retired, that he was injured and they misdiagnosed his injury. Yeah. And when he got a second opinion and it showed that he was injured, they're still pressuring him to play. Yeah. And it's similar to the Isaiah Thomas thing, or because all they care about is themselves. They don't care about you, right? And that's a very common thing with athletes. His experience is not different than other athletes. And so the whole thing with Kawhi, that he was injured and that he had to get a second opinion because he felt like the team doctors didn't know what they're doing and all of that. That's a really personal and agitating thing for athletes, because their body is their career. And if it's being mishandled, then that's basically someone is taking hundreds of millions of dollars out of your pocket, right? Yeah. So, and especially in the case of someone like Kawhi. Yeah. So, anyways, it was interesting. But, I was glad you brought up the Isaiah Thomas thing, because the other thing that people keep bringing up is that the Raptors backstabbed DeMar DeRozan. Yeah. And no one's ever going to want to come to Toronto because they backstabbed DeMar DeRozan. And a lot of media people in the U.S. push that too. Really, huh? Yeah. I don't know what your thoughts on that.
I mean, when you sign a contract, that means now the team is controlling your destiny. Yeah. Right? Why did LeBron sign all those 1+1 deals with the Cavs? Because he decides when he wants to leave. Yeah. Right? That's very it's almost revolutionary in sports for an athlete to have that much power. Mm-hmm. But anytime you sign a long-term deal, the team decides.
They have control.
They have control, right? Mm-hmm. This is that's the other side of the coin. Yep. Lots of money on your side, but the other side is you can be flipped for some assets down the road. Yep. So I think this is something, every time this happens, everyone's like, oh, it's a business. Well, no duh. It is a business, right? And also, the thing is, you look at the other side. Remember Vince Carter, right? Vince Carter has been what happens, what George W. Bush was doing to himself, right? Kind of showing himself as the elder statesman. The elder statesman who is the sane, conservative, as opposed to Trump. Yeah. Right? And really just whitewashing his crimes away. Right. Right? Of course, Carter does not have crimes, of course, right? But there's this revisionist history that taking place with Bush, right? I follow that politics just like you do, right? But it really irks me when that happens, right? And I almost feel saying every time Bush's name is mentioned, he killed 500,000 Iraqis for no reason. That's a war crime. You know what I mean? Yeah. I just feel that no one should forget that. Yeah. Carter, coming back to sports, right? He was, if you remember, he pouted his way out of Toronto. Yeah. Right? He was miserable. He started to not try until they traded him for a really bad deal. Yeah. And that was it. Right? But people think that that's now somehow after some years it's fine. But not what the team does. I mean, you can't have it both ways, right? Right. The players do it all the time too. They complain their way out of a situation.
And there seems to be there's been a lot of examples of teams trading away players in the ways that are Isaiah Thomas. Yeah. He played, was his sister who died? Yeah. And it was her funeral, and the next day he came and played, and played amazing, and they won. It was in the playoffs, and literally the next day they're
shipped him off.
Got a better player. So.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, Boston, to their credit, that was an amazing deal. Right? A lot of people, I was actually wrong about that deal. I thought the Cleveland, the deal was good for both teams. That's what I thought when it happened. But man, that was a horrible deal for the Cavs. Yeah. Right?
Killed them.
Killed them, right? Yeah. But I mean, Boston did a great job, right? Yeah. So it's you think about this backstabbing narrative, right? Yeah. And we talk about this. Oh, athlete feels betrayed. Well, buddy, you would do the same thing. Right? Or your athlete friends do this all the time, right? Pout their way out of situations, conveniently getting surgeries in the season, right?
Because they want to leave.
So it's these are it goes both ways, right?
Yeah.
And DeMar is gonna feel upset because maybe he felt that he should be Raptor for life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's only there's a reason why Dirk Nowitzki is so unique.
Yeah.
Because he literally was like a trailblazer, right?
Yeah.
There's nobody like him before, right? Like in the recent basketball history, somebody who came from Europe, right? Had those amazing skills, had this incredible run, took his team all the way, right? I mean, Dirk Nowitzki was very special, and that's why he stuck around, and they kept him and never traded him, right? Kobe, to a lesser degree, I've never been a Kobe fan, by the way, but still, they kept him, right? Yeah. Even after his trade demands. Those are very rare cases. Doesn't happen, right? So DeMar thinking that he's like somehow there, I'm like, brother, I think you're a little pretentious there, right?
So he was really upset though. And that was the issue. I don't know if we talked about this before, and I guess you didn't see, but a hockey player, Milan Lucic from the Edmonton Oilers, he was on another podcast, and they asked him about DeMar DeRozan, and he kind of went off on him. I don't know if you probably find the clip if you Google it. Yeah. And he was just like, what's wrong with this guy? And he's making $30 million, and who cares? Like, you got traded. It's a business. It's a business from the beginning. And he was talking himself because he won a Stanley Cup with Boston. Yeah. And they traded him. A few years later, but they traded him. He was like, I have no problem with the fact they traded me. Like, there's no hard feelings. This is just part of the business. And, like, that's it. That's whatever. You just move on with your life. And I thought it was interesting because he kept mentioning, you make $30 million. Because if you're a hockey player like Milan Lucic, I don't know his exact number, but he's like something like 5.7 or something. Really, yeah? 5.75. So that's like, pretty big difference between that and $30 million. So definitely. Yeah. So, he went off on him for that, which is interesting because the average person, always says that to professional athletes, like, you make millions of dollars, right? So, but then it's interesting to see the hockey player saying that about the basketball player because he's so much lower than him. But he's got a point though, right? He does have a point. He's got a good point. It comes with it, right? Yeah, DeMar should be like. But they're all just like, I don't know, like entitled, I guess they feel. I mean, entitled, but I think he felt betrayed. But it's like, why, right? Did the Raptors trade you after you won the championship? Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, the team has suffered year after year. You got swept like 2 out of the last 3 years. Yeah. And they said they're going to make changes. Like, I get he didn't want to be traded, but at the same time, right? I mean, this is part of the game, right? Right. I mean, think about this just like logically. Yeah. You get swept by LeBron, who is playing probably on one of his worst teams ever. Yeah, and look, they went to 7 games against the Pacers. They went to 7 games against the Celtics. Yeah. And then they got swept against Golden State. Right. Ugly. They weren't a great team. No, they weren't. They had LeBron, but they weren't a great team. They were like, I think, ranked 28 or 29 in the NBA in defense. Wow. That's how bad that team was, right? Yeah. And I think one of the ESPN columnists, Brian Windhorst, made a point. He's like, against the Pacers, LeBron could barely catch his breath. Yeah. Because they were hounding him. They were all over. And he's like, against the Raptors, he was like on vacation. Yeah. I mean, that's a stark difference, right? It showed that there was a big gap. Right, and it starts at the top. I mean, if you are the superstar of the team and you're on the bench watching the team get swept and you have 8 points and, just a horrible overall game. Exactly. What do you expect? Even if the team got swept, but like he was amazing and he was the one carrying the Raptors. Exactly. You would have an argument, right? But like he wasn't that player. He was not, right? So I don't even know why he's so upset about. Yeah. But let's revisit the scenario of Kawhi staying, Kawhi going. Sure. Kawhi staying, amazing. Right? Raptors have, give Masai the keys to the city. Build the man a statue already. If Kawhi stays, right? Yeah. But if he doesn't stay, he's like, this was great, guys, but I'm going to LA. Okay. That is it's not a disaster. You just start the rebuild, really. You start the rebuild, but you already have a lot of really good young players that can accelerate that rebuild. Fred Van Fleet, you've got OJ, you got Siakam, you've got Wright. Delon Wright's really good. Wright, it's not bad, yeah. So I mean, those are four pretty good excellent pieces, players. Yeah. I would argue OG has like star potential. It's possible. Right? Really, like in terms of like how smart he is as a player for someone who's a rookie, and already how
much like basic skills that he has already as a rookie, I think he has definite star potential, right? And then you have, say you want to rebuild, okay? Kyle Lowry is a very good asset, right? You can trade him for a draft pick. You get your own draft pick, and given the good history of drafting, and given how many good players are now like falling to like the early teens in the draft, right? Donovan Mitchell fell there, Klay Thompson fell there, right? Like Gordon Hayward fell there, Paul George fell to that point. I mean, these are all-star, all-NBA players. Okay, if you have like a couple of picks in that range, I think you can make some. You can do something there, right? So I don't even think it's going to be this massive overhaul. It might be like a couple of years, and you get a lot of like really good young players, and you're back in contention, or maybe you trade some of them and you get another star. Right.
I think that's part of the issue. Like, people have to clarify what are your goals. Like, when I was coming up with like the social media reactions, it was like, what is the goal of this team?
Right.
Because I always thought the goal of the team was to win a championship, right?
Or aspire to be, right? Like,
but for a lot of people, it seemed like, well, now we're going to suck after he's going to leave and we're going to suck. It's like, well, okay, if you kept DeMar, you were not going to win a championship.
No chance.
You're just going to be a good team that didn't win a championship. And that was going to continue until Lowry probably declined, which is going to happen in a couple of years. And then you're going to be a bad team that has DeMar DeRozan on it. And that was it. So you're going to end up rebuilding anyways, whether it's now or whether it's in 3-4 years. You're going to do it anyways. Shouldn't you just figure out, if you got a chance, take that chance now, try to get that championship, and if you don't, then do the rebuild you're going to do anyways?
I really like the way you put it. And if you think about the DeMar route, right, you would have been overpaying him to keep him.
At that point in his career,
and then that would have stunted the growth of someone like Siakam and OG, because he's taking away a lot of their like usage, right? Like in terms of ball handling and stuff. And you are never good enough to make it, but never bad enough to get a nice pick.
Right.
So
that's the worst.
That's the worst place to be, right? So it's like, do you keep running it back just because you don't want to be just horrible? But I don't even think they'll be that bad, right? Like, this is not the Raptors of Jamario Moon and those horrible days, right? This is not the same Raptors. You have a lot of really good young players on this team.
You have a base to rebuild from.
And a really good... People forget that the G League affiliate Mississauga team, right? The 905, Toronto, the Raptors 905. That's a big deal. You can send a lot of young players there. They get their reps. They get the NBA conditioning faster. In like previous years, someone like DeLon Wright or Fred VanVleet would not be core young pieces because they'll never get the development reps. Right.
But the Raptors are able to develop.
Are now able to develop better, right? So I mean, it's not like just really horrible. That's a big credit to Masai, by the way, for doing that. Right? That was a huge thing he got done very early. So that was. Here's the thing. This is not gonna be as bad as those like terrible days. I was in this WhatsApp group with friends, and then I was like, "Oh, subhanallah, the Raptors are doing so bad." And one of my friends started posting these box scores from 2005 and 7, and it's like the Raptors scored 9 points in that quarter. I was like, so? He's like, do you want to go back to those days? I'm like, no, but I don't think we're going back to those days, right? Even if you trade DeMar and Kawhi leaves, right? It's just, why go back to like that?
There's a way better system now,
right? So, I don't know. I think it's it's like the underconfident child. I feel like that about the Raptors. Like, I have kids, three daughters. One is way overconfident, right? One is very underconfident, right? And I have to, like, we have a backyard swing, right? So I had to teach her how to swing on the backyard swing. Now she's fine. But when she goes to the playground, she doesn't feel comfortable sitting there. She's so scared of it, even though it's the exact same thing. So I feel the Raptors are like the underconfident kid. Like the fans, right? The fans. Yeah. They just feel that, oh, this is gonna happen. Oh, it's like Alonzo Mourning with the Raptors who never came. All right, this is gonna happen. Oh, we'll be like that team with those horrible players. It's like
Leaf fans are the same way. I guess it's just a Toronto thing. it's like they expect. I mean, we've had a really bad history of bad things happening to the Leafs. There's a storied history of it, but they just expect the worst things. Even like John Tavares, they just signed John Tavares, best free agent they've ever signed.
When was that series? Sorry, where the Phillies beat? Sorry, not the
Bruins.
The Bruins. Sorry, beat.
It was 2011.
20 was that the one where they were up by like a couple of goals?
4-1 and
right?
third period. Yeah.
Oh, that was horrible.
So yes, there's a history precedent of terrible things happening to this team. So that was interesting because that was what got me into analytics, by the way.
Yeah.
That series.
That's
because the analytics people kept saying, like, this team is getting lucky, this team's getting lucky, this team's getting lucky.
Yeah.
All the analytics are showing that they're just getting lucky, and that at some point the percentages are gonna shift, right? Like if you flip a coin and it comes up heads every time, you know, the percentages are always 50%, and at some point you're gonna get a tails, right? So, and I was like, nah, this team's good, we're gonna do great. And then like overnight in one period, the percentages just flipped on their heads. Ooh. And the analytics people are like, see, and you could start to see how like how that comes into play. Yeah. It shows you like data analytics and stuff's really important. Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, like the Leafs get Tavares. He's the best free agent they've ever got, probably in the history of the Leafs, I would argue.
Really, huh?
Yeah, to that extent. Definitely most impactful.
Give me like a basketball parallel, like how like he's top 10 player?
Yeah, he's like a Paul George.
Paul George,
I'll put him at that level.
Wow, that's
he's not like Kawhi Leonard. He's not like top 3 in the game or anything, or top 5 in the game. But yeah, I would say like a Paul George level player.
Like hockey's more positional too, right?
Yeah.
Right. Like I mean,
there's certain positions more important than others. Right. Center's an important position.
Yeah, and he's a center, right?
Yeah.
So right away you get like a top center.
Exactly.
Okay.
They're kind of deep at center anyways because they have Austin Matthews and they have Nazem Kadri.
Yeah.
But now they become arguably the deepest team at center in the whole league.
Nice.
Like to that level. And their forwards are arguably, again, the best forwards in the league. Their defense is not great, but...
The goalie's pretty good.
Goalie's decent, I would say. Average. Slightly above average kind of goalie. But, you know, like, to me, the team is a contender right now.
Yeah.
Like, they're in that contender status.
Yeah.
There's, like, 7 teams in the league, I'd say, are contenders, and the Leafs are definitely one of them. But, like, great thing has happened to the team. Yeah. And immediately all the fans were like, we're not going to be able to keep the young guys. They gave them too much money. We're going to lose all of our players. Like, every bad thing that can happen, that's all they could talk about. And I'm like, why? Why? And it's the same thing. Like, it's just the Raptors fans are the same way. Like, they expect the worst has to happen.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they're just expecting it. And I don't understand why when, like, I get why bad things happened in the past. Yeah. You had bad management.
Yeah.
And that's like a lesson, by the way. Leadership, bad leadership creates bad results, right?
Hey, we can draw a parallel to like Muslims there, right?
Yes, you can, very much. You have bad leadership in the masjid, you can have bad results in the masjid. It's just the way that it works, right? Like the Leafs were a terrible organization. They made terrible mistakes all over. And then they fired everyone, basically. Yeah. They brought in Brendan Shanahan. He brought in Kyle Dubas, smart guy. They brought in Mike Babcock, who's one of the best coaches. Yeah. Now you have good people, smart people running the organization. They start making smart moves. They basically haven't made any big mistake. Yeah. And now you have a good team. Like in 4 years, they turned it around completely, right? Yeah. Same thing with the Raptors. I mean, Masai Ujiri, I know maybe you and I disagree a little bit on this. Yeah. I would say like the maximum he's made 2 or 3 mistakes. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's still pretty good.
I mean, and this, in my opinion, this like absolves him of all the mistakes.
And all the mistakes.
That's it. It's like you've done Hajj.
Yeah. And then like good teams build that pipeline. So you have like your farm team and you know how to develop players. Leafs have the same thing. They have all these players keep coming up because they built that farm team and you know, they know how to develop players better and all of that. So, which is, you know, one of the interesting things that when the Leafs first got Brendan Shanahan and they're like, this team has really bad culture, what are you going to do about it? And he was like, and I love this quote, and it like stuck in my head because we're always thinking about the culture and our community and the culture. He said, there's not one thing you do. You can't just come up and say, our culture's changed today. You can't just come and say, we're changing our culture, we're going to be, you know, hardworking, or we're going to be this, or we're going to be that. He's like, you can't do that. He said, to change culture, it's not one decision you make. It's a lot of small decisions that you make. And that changes everything, right? And you see it in how they run the team, like all these small changes.
There's a serious Moss parallel to that too.
A big Moss parallel to that. It's the small things that you do,
Yeah.
right? How you advertise your events. It's how you talk to the congregations, how you take complaints. It's all the small things that people won't pay attention to, but in the long run, it changes the whole culture of the community.
Yeah.
Right? It's not the big things. And yeah, you see it with both teams, both the Raptors and the Leafs. Like you see the small differences go the big way at the end of the day.
So Tavares is going to be like. So who's gonna be starting? Is Austin Matthews gonna start? Right? Like
I would say, like to me, I think Austin Matthews even today. This is how much I believe in Austin Matthews. I think he's better than Tavares. Even
wow,
yeah.
That's a big thing.
His if you look at his points per 60, so basically his points per minute on the ice.
Yeah.
He is one of the best players in the league.
But like last
goal scoring is
But last playoffs, like did he like I was following
he had bad playoffs.
Yeah, bad playoffs. Okay.
He had a bad playoffs.
Yeah. Is it just because he's young and needs some time?
Yeah, I don't know, because even in the regular season, every time he played Boston, he couldn't do much against them. They had his number for some reason.
What's his name? The Chara, right?
Chara, yeah.
That guy, man.
And they put him on him, so
he's been after the Leafs for like
for a
forever.
I think this year, like if they play a Boston again, it'll be easier for the Leafs.
Okay.
Because what Boston did, Boston has one line.
Yeah.
It's one incredible line.
Yeah.
Patrice Bergeron is a really underrated player in the NHL, awesome defensive player. And they had him, and they have Chara, who's a really good defenseman. And what they did was they said, okay, the Leafs have the Matthews line, and they have the Kadri line. So they would either put Bergeron against Matthews and Chara against Kadri, or the opposite. And that crippled the Leafs to a certain extent because they couldn't really do much beyond that.
Really?
But now that you have Tavares, it's like there's one guy you can't account for.
Yeah, that's like your ace.
It's the ace.
That breaks that.
So it's going to be really tough only in like certain teams who are like stacked at defense maybe that can match up to that. But
that's
otherwise
awesome.
it's a tough matchup to make.
But are they starting Matthews still?
Yeah, like it doesn't really matter in the end. They're going to end up playing the same amount of minutes for the most part. It's about teams have to pick their poison. Which team do you want to match up your best defenseman against?
Yeah.
Right? So,
but our boy Kadri's in the last one now. He's third now.
Yeah. So my feeling is that what they're going to do is on home games. Yeah. So the way the NHL works in hockey, the home team gets to change last.
Okay.
So you get to see what the other team puts on the ice, and then you can make your adjustment.
Okay.
So typically they use Kadri in the shutdown role. So they'd use Kadri to play against the other team's best team. Yeah. So at home, I think they'll still do that. They'll put Kadri against the best line, and then that way you free up both Matthews and Tavares, which is going to be incredible. Because you think about Tavares, point per game player in the NHL, amazing player, played on the Islanders, who always sucked. Yeah. He always faced the other team's best defenseman. Yeah. Always. And he always had terrible wingers on his side. Now he's going to get elite NHL wingers. Yeah. And he's going to get like freedom to do what he wants. So it's
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so it's like super exciting from that perspective.
I guess you're shaking while you're smiling so hard.
I had this feeling like the week before he signed. I was like, I feel he's going to sign. Wow. And everyone's like, you're just like a Leafs fan. And whatever.
You grew up in Saga, right? Is that right?
Yeah, in Oakville, I think.
Oh, Oakville, okay. Saga, we'll include them.
Yeah. But that was the other thing, was like, just like people when we talk about Kawhi Leonard, it's like he's never going to be here, he's never going to be here. There was this perception with the Leafs, not just a perception, it was a reality, is that no one, especially people from Toronto, would ever sign in Toronto.
Yeah.
Because it's a fishbowl, and you're going to have a spotlight on you. And if you're playing badly, all your family hears about it, and your cousins hear about it, and everybody hears about it. And nobody wants to be in this situation, so nobody wants to play here. Yeah. And that was true.
You got yelled at in the streets.
And that was true. But the reason also why that was happening was because the Leafs weren't a good team. So nobody wanted to be here. Yeah. Right? And it's the reality. When the Leafs are losing, it's terrible to play for them because you're hearing it from everyone. The media is all over you. Yeah. But when they're a good team, it's the opposite. It's amazing to be here.
Yeah. It's kind of like the Knicks, you know? Like
it's a lot like the Knicks.
Right?
It's a lot like the Knicks.
But the Knicks have sucked for so long.
Yeah, that they just have that perception. Nobody wants to go there. Right? But if they ever turned it around, everybody would want to go there.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. The Leafs turned it around. They got all these draft picks. They stockpiled. They got good. And then he was able to come.
Yeah.
Like then he was like, it was the perfect. Like he said in his press conference, perfect time.
Yeah.
You know, the team's good. I get to fit in.
Yeah.
And he just went from that perspective, right? So I think like Kawhi, it's the same thing. Like, yeah, nobody wanted to be with the Raptors before because they were terrible before.
Yeah.
And now they're actually a good team. And if he's here and it's a good team, it might be a good opportunity to stay.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think I'll be tuning in a little bit more into the hockey.
Into the hockey.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to do this again at some point. So
I mean, London is just like,
it's a hockey town. Right?
Hockey town, right?
Yeah.
All those, all these kids are inspired.
Mostly Leafs fan or Habs fans over there?
I haven't gotten, like, I've only been there for 3 weeks, but a lot of them, I think, all the kids are inspired by National Kadri. So they're playing. Well, I met one of the guys from the board, and he was like, "Oh, sorry, I couldn't email you. I had a concussion." I was like, "Oh, what happened?" He's like, "Oh, I was playing hockey, and somebody body checked me." I was like, "Whoa, buddy."
That's really
crazy.
Cool.
Right?
I need to come by your community.
Yeah, I was thinking, Shaykh, right? This
scouting for some.
You fit right in with this board here. All hockey players.
Mashallah. Yeah, we have this hockey tournament here. I'm sure people in London have heard of it too. It's ball hockey, so it's not ice.
Yeah.
But mashallah, it's like hundreds of kids who come up and play, and adults, and they have like a Saddam Cup. Yeah. They have like a Masters League, so like people who are over 40.
Nice.
And they have like 6 teams playing there.
That's pretty awesome.
I
saw you raising the cup.
Yeah, so our team won. I don't play anymore. I'm just I've gained too much weight. My imam body is coming into shape. Like I could play the lower levels, but then I just don't want to. So I have a team though, then I coach them. And
it's pretty awesome.
So this year we had like a semi-professional hockey player who played with us.
Wow.
The only other Muslim I know who's in professional hockey. He plays like 4 levels down the NHL. Okay. The NHL and AHL, East Coast League, and then the league that he's in. So 4 levels down. Wow. Still, and he dominates that league. Like he's capable of playing higher. Yeah. But he's like, for some reason, he's like, if I play higher, I make less money. And he's like, I don't care about making the NHL. I'm not going to make it at this age. Yeah. Right. So he just plays lower and makes more money, but he dominates. Like, he's like the best player in that league. Yeah.
That's like, I mean, if you don't have aspirations to play in the NHL, that's I think more fun, right?
Yeah. He's like, I should have gone to Europe because you can make more money in Europe. Yeah. But he's like, I just don't want to leave my family and everything here, so I just stayed. So, but he was really good. Yeah. The other team was like that lost to us in the finals. They're like, we couldn't do anything against them. We just like,
it's like if you're playing pickup basketball and you have a brother on your team who's dunking.
Yeah,
right. It's like this is unfair here. Like he's just dunking on everybody. Okay,
yeah. It was basically the same thing.
Yeah, right.
They're like, we put him on defense, and they're like, we just dump the ball in this corner. So it's like they dump the puck, and then you run in after it. He's like, you just get there first. And then he would get it, pass it out, and we wouldn't be able to do anything. And we're just like, can't do anything to him. And the crazy thing about him too is that like he's not in shape. Like, that's what he told me. Like when I first met him, he was like, I'm gonna take off my shirt in the dressing room, and you're gonna be like, how does this guy play hockey? Really? He's like, you don't go to the gym. He's like, that's one of the reasons I don't want to play higher up too. Yeah. He's like, I don't go to the gym. And like after games, he eats like burgers and pizzas and stuff, right? But all of a sudden, he just starts running, and he's like the fastest guy.
Wow!
And like, he's strong. And
it's pretty amazing. It's
like SPLS people have like that natural ability,
athletic ability, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. But it's a great initiative, and this year they're like raising money for different causes and everything. So it was awesome.
It's pretty awesome, mashallah.
Yeah, so. I'll come by London and see if there's any talent we can take for our team.
I think there's a lot of talent, a lot of hockey talent in London, for sure.
MashaAllah, that's awesome. Jazakallah khair. I wanted to get you on the podcast for a while, and alhamdulillah, worked out. I think it's one of the longer podcasts we've had.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. I think we got to do this on a regular basis, do some like sports recap, inshallah.
Inshallah. I think it's a lot of fun, and like I was really looking forward to it actually. Yeah. It's I had the khutbah and I'm like, oh.
Do you have the Friday crash after a khutbah that you're just like?
I just feel like sometimes I just sit in the car in the driveway after the khutbah, after I don't do the khutbah, because I don't want to talk to anybody or see anybody. I just want 10 minutes to myself. Yeah. But just and then oftentimes I would eat lunch
Right.
and just fall asleep. So the crash is real. But today I was like, I have this thing in the evening. I'm so excited. The energy is keeping me going here.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
I used to do like 2 khutbahs because
Yeah.
I didn't have anyone else in the masjid. So I did the first khutbah,
Yeah.
then I did the second khutbah.
Wow.
And then after that, I would
That's
do a
exhausting.
1 hour halaqah usually at night on Fridays.
Yeah.
Just like, it was
That's a week's work.
toughest. Yeah.
That's not easy.
It's not easy,
Yeah.
And then like Saturday, you just like end up crashing because you're just like, it
just
takes
need
a
to
lot out of
yeah.
you. Yeah. Today was pretty tough too because I had the khutbah and the other podcast.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, this flowed really easily. So
Alhamdulillah. That's awesome.
alhamdulillah. But jazakallah khair.
Barakallah.
Inshallah, we'll have to have you on again. Inshallah.
Bi-idhnillah.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.